So welcome back to the Dogs and Deadlifts podcast. So this morning we have all the way from the USA, Jay Jack. Welcome.
How you doing, man?
Yeah, fantastic. It's 6:30 here in the morning here. I've been up, ran the dogs, all ready to fire, mate.
Are you one of those get up early in the morning fucking kind of people?
Well, that comes from owning a gym, doing 5 o'clock classes for so long, 5 a.m. classes. I just wake up now. I just open the eyes and spring up.
It's weird, man. I'm like a eight o'clock, 8:30 type of wake up person. That's my typical thing. But yeah, I was never the only time I ever did like early morning shit was when I was kind of homeless and living in my teacher's gym. Like I slept in the closet at my teacher's gym.
Yeah.
And then everybody knew like I was there. I was just everybody knew. I had this one like ex-Navy SEAL freak of nature who showed up every morning at like 5 a.m. and just wanted to brawl. So I was like fucking scrapping at like 5 in the morning. But I mean, I was young and whatever, you know what I mean? I had nothing else going on.
Yeah.
But now, no, man. Now, if you want me out of bed before 8, somebody's going to have to fucking pay me.
I kid you not, my eyes spring open. Like I've got twin boys. My wife's like, "You're waking the boys up every morning." I'm like, "I know, but I just can't sit still. Once my eyes are open, I'm done."
I get that. Like at about 8 o'clock, it happens to me. I've tried to sleep, and I just like 8 a.m. You just go bing, and then open. And I'm like, fuck, no.
I hear you. So,
Mate, before you go into a bunch of other shit, I have to say there's one issue that I have with your show so far. I've been listening. It's good. I like it.
Yeah.
But the name of the show is Dogs and Deadlifts, and you have not yet asked one fucking person how much they deadlift.
You're true. You are
That
correct.
should be like that should just be like okay, who are your dogs? Your dogs? How much do you deadlift? That should just be a question straight off.
Oh, fair enough. So in my head, I was obviously deadlifting, but I was also associating I know that you compare some drag work to squatting and things like that, but I like that in my head, when I was coming up with the name, of course, I had a bit of a combo of obviously human deadlifting, but also dogs doing drag work, so
yeah,
that's how I sort of put the combo together.
It's great, dude. Are you kidding me? Like, it's the shit. I have so many clips in my gym of like lifting. Some of the earliest footage way back in the day was I had a garage. My gym, like I had a gym in my garage. When I was fighting, we always had to have like stuff at our house. So like if you get snowed in for a week, you can't miss workouts, right?
Yeah.
So we had a gym in our garage. Some of the earliest photos or videos that got out of us training dogs was like in my gym. There's like a deadlift bar with a bunch of bumpers and shit, and then like 2 or 3 dogs in downs or something, For sure.
For sure. I used to rent out a CrossFit gym actually for their space because the council wouldn't give me a local park, and so I'm like, I was going around to all these CrossFit gyms asking them, could I rent their space after class?
Dude, I don't have a dog training facility.
Yeah.
I run dogs out of my gym.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like we have a jiu-jitsu academy. It's got a little strength and conditioning room. But like people all the time are like, so at your facility, I'm like, no. I mean, it's 5,000 square feet of padded floor. So what the hell do you want? You know what
That's
I mean?
right.
Like, it might as well be a dog facility.
Yeah.
It's like all my videos. It's weird because it's like you see people like professional dog trainers working dogs, and they're either outside in a field type setting or they're inside what is very obviously a dog training facility.
Yeah.
And all my shit's like in the cage or like next to bars and stuff.
Yeah, awesome, mate. So let's jump in if that's okay. Look, as you know, we're pretty casual around here. But for I suppose some of my listeners that aren't familiar with, I suppose yourself or even, the GRC, can you give us like a shortened version in your own words on how that got started and a little bit about yourself?
The quick version is I I was involved. I grew up in Louisiana, and dog fighting was kind of prevalent. So I was around what to me were normal dogs, were to everybody else game bred pit bulls.
Mhm.
Like that's just what dogs were in my eyes. Uh, and I didn't realize till I was a teenager that there were other types of dogs, like other dogs were like that. But I grew up around people doing drag work, people working spring poles, people on treadmills, and you know what I mean. Like that's
Mhm.
just what I grew up around,
Yeah.
and those dogs. Uh, and I grew up myself in martial arts and fighting professionally, fighting for money. Um, so like I just kind of grew up in and around the scene of the gym, like martial arts slash strength and conditioning gym, and game bred working dogs were like the two worlds that I was in all the time. And every gym I was ever in, my dog was with me all the time, right? And so like everybody started asking me, because I lived well with my dogs. They weren't trained in the sense of I didn't have positions I could put on verbal cue only and shit like that, but like we lived well together, which is what most people want to accomplish and are jealous of. Like, if you could say, hey, you want to live well with your dog, or you want your dog to have rock star obedience, most people would rather live well with their dog. So I was pulling that part off, but didn't understand
Yeah.
position type training.
Yeah.
Um, and then, but everybody, I was always in the gym with like 100 people in it. So anybody that was like, oh man, I'm having trouble with my dog, I was the guy that they were like, dude, go talk to that guy. You know what I mean? So I was in and around the concept of helping people learn to live with their dogs my whole life.
Yeah.
It wasn't supposed to be a career. It was just something I did. And then around 2010, I got into the science of dog training. When I retired from fighting, you kind of look for stuff to do afterwards. And I kind of started really exploring the science of actual training
Mhm.
and not just like intuitively living well like I was doing before that.
Yeah.
And that took me into like studying with people and finding mentors and really devouring information online.
Mhm.
And through doing that, every time I would go train with somebody, they would be like, man, you have a unique set of experiences that you need to share with people. And
Mhm.
so I got exposed to teaching well before my time in training would have suggested I should have been,
Yeah.
you know? Uh, and so I got a lot of exposure in that way, which is cool. But that kind of put me into this scope of like being on a podcast and being in the public eye. So it kind of catapulted it way faster than it would have if I'd have just been sitting around by myself taking a client or two.
Yeah.
Um, and then GRC Dog Sports, man, like I kind of just started working my dogs the way I did. Like I grew up in those pit bull activities, so I was still dragging and doing spring poles and doing wall climbing, doing treadmills and things like that,
Mhm.
working my dogs like good game dogs. But then started adding control into it as I learned more about dog training. I started adding some control into it, and I realized like in the world of work with your dogs, it's like there are control sports like AKC obedience and things like that where the dogs are having to be controlled, but they're never expressing.
Mhm.
And then there's expression sports with almost no control, like dock diving and weight pull traditionally done and things like that, where it's like there's no control, but there's all drive expression. And I'm training with these people who are doing both. Like that's where I take my training concepts from, like primarily Ivan Balabanov. And he's in these, he does drive expression and control, but it's through the concept of bite sports.
Mhm.
So everybody that I was looking at that did both expression and control were biting human shaped objects in their game. And I was like, I'm working with a lot of rescues and a lot of like Joe Blow normal people who are freaked out a little bit by the biting of human shaped toys in the game.
Yeah.
And two, man, like I've spent my 40 years in spring pole, wall climb, weight pull, like, and you know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to just give up on what I do.
Mhm.
Everybody's like, you want to get into control and expression, come play my game. And I'm like, can't I just play my game, but a different way? And so I started doing that with my own personal dogs.
Mhm.
But it wasn't supposed to be a sport. It was just the way I work dogs. But I found so much benefit that I started working clients' dogs like that.
Mhm.
And then in order to help motivate clients, I'm like, man, you need a goal. Just like my dog doesn't give a shit about down, but I show him, hey, you get to the tug toy through the down, and now he loves the down because the down brings the toy. I want my clients to really get into training their dogs, but they don't really give a fuck about all they cared about was like not having them bite the mailman. Once you get like past a bare minimum, they're like, we're good.
Yep.
And I wanted to motivate them to do more in their training. And just like the dogs, like if you use nothing but negative reinforcement with a dog, you'll get compliance, but no joy and no enthusiasm to pursue any more than is necessary. And the same thing with people. If you just use negative reinforcement with people, it's the same thing. And so if you're like, look, if all you care about is not biting the mailman, I'll get you to do some training and I'll get you to a minimum standard, but you will have no joy and you will have no enthusiasm to pursue any greater excellence because you just want to get out of trouble. So I tried to apply the same concepts with people that we apply with dogs, like find the joy. So like I said, okay, here's the deal. We're going to play these games that we play, but we're going to stick some control parameters. And now these people have a reason. There's a title and a trophy or whatever. First, it was just, there was no titles or trophies. It was just games I played with my clients. I'm like, hey, let's get together on Saturday and we'll all work spring pole. You know, it'll be cool. And they're like, cool. And I was like, okay, let's have a little competition. Like we'll lose points if you do this and you're obedient. Like, but it's literally just it's like an in-house tournament lifting. It's not sanctioned. It's just, we're all getting together and doing a little shitty deadlift party. Right.
Yeah.
And that's cool. But then because I was on the podcast, we were talking about stuff we were doing in training and I'm talking about it. And then somebody would write me and go, man, that sounds really cool. You know, could you send me like the structure written out so I can do it too? And I'd never really written it out. So then I write it out. And then somebody would call me and go, well, hey, you know, if they do this, should that be points or disqualification? I'm like, oh man, I'm not really sure. And then I have to make some rules. Yep. And then somebody's like, oh, you know, is there like an organization? Can we record the points? And like, is there a title? And I'm like, oh, I guess I have to make one. And then the next thing you know, I have this fucking international dog sport with hundreds of members and clubs all over the world. And I'm like, fuck, okay, I guess that's a thing now. Like it just took off, man. It just was needed and responded to, and it took off. You know?
Yeah. It's awesome, and I love just how, you know, it just builds, you know, and it's continued to build it.
Nothing in my life. I was just doing an interview and said the same thing. Nothing. Like I look from the outside like a hustler. Like I have all these businesses and I have like different. I teach jujitsu and I do dogs and I do seminars in both of those things. And I have an online jujitsu thing and I have a podcast and like, I look like some Gary V wannabe hustler. And the truth is like, none of it is intentional. Like everything is just like random happenstance that I go, ooh, and jump on. You know what I mean? Like fighting. I was a fucking criminal until 2001. Like fighting was illegal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't have a bank account because I couldn't tell them where I got the money. Like I am a fucking criminal. And then in 2001, they're like, oh no, you're not a criminal. You're a professional athlete. And I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Now I'm a professional athlete. Yeah. I've been thinking I was a criminal this whole time. Now I'm a professional athlete.
That's
or
right.
like I'm working dogs just for fun and it's cool. And then somebody's like, oh man, you should come out here and do a workshop. And you're like, oh man, I can't really miss my gym over the weekend, you know? And they're like, well, I'll pay you. And you go, oh, okay. Now I'm doing workshops here. It's just, everything has just been like falling face first into good fortune.
Yeah, no, fantastic.
Weird, I also would think I have shitty luck. Like I've had kind of a rough life. I'm like, I guess it makes up for it.
Yeah, no, awesome. So today I wanted to, you know, depending on how we go for time, of course, I wanted to have a chat about building athleticism, and, you know, sort of breaking it down to a bit of general up to you, you know, but yeah, GPP, that's all. Well, I was thinking about it, but, you know, up to you go. Yeah.
Nobody talks in those standards. It's crazy. It's like there are terminologies.
Yep.
There are terminologies that are accepted, but nobody uses them in the dog world.
For sure.
Like when I first taught Ashley about weight pull and like lifting as well, I was the first weightlifting coach she had, but it's like, it's the same thing. It's like you talk about it and you're like, look, people go like, drag work. And you're like, well, if you're going to try to reach a different plateau, like a different market, like if you're going to try to talk to medical professionals, you can't go drag work.
Yep.
But there's a name for it. It's resistance training. It's loaded weight bearing resistance training. Like there's names for that shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but we have to speak in those terms. And then like the dog world is always like 30 years behind. Dog athletics is always like 20, 30 years behind human athletics.
Yep.
But it used to be like that in human athletics, dude. It's like 40 years ago, people were like, don't lift weights, you'll get bulky. You're like, what? Now ping pong players lift weights. You know what I mean? Like everybody lifts weights. You have to.
For sure.
But yeah, it's funny. Like there are accepted terms,
mm-hmm.
and people in the dog world are just so behind the times. Like GPP is a word, general physical preparedness. Like GPP is a word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when people are like, oh, drag work, I don't want to compete with my dog.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the 30-year ago mindset where you're like, oh man, you should lift weights. And people are like, I don't need to squat 1,000 pounds to sprint. And you're like, I didn't say squat 1,000 pounds. I said lift weights. Like I didn't say competitively power lift. I said lift weights. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing when you go, yeah, you should get your dog into drag work. People are like, we don't pull. We're not going to be weight pullers.
Yep.
We're like, dude, it's GPP. And they go, what's GPP? And I'm like, fuck, we need to buy you some books.
Yeah.
Like, we need to get some basic education on strength and conditioning. You know what I mean?
Yep. And even just the terminology around, canine conditioning, right? It's more than jumping on a balance, a balance board and doing some proprioception work. For me, that I'd love to hear your, take on canine conditioning, the term.
Well, so yeah, it's interesting. It's like canine again, like I said, everybody's kind of behind the times.
Mm-hmm.
Up until, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, fit pause and proprioceptive work was not super popular. Mm-hmm. Like you know what I mean? Like 10 years ago, you could find it, but it wasn't like now everybody and their brother has little inflatable bones they put dogs on. You know what I mean? Like proprioceptive shit is pretty standard now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when we think about human fitness, you think about these aspects, these modalities, right? You think about structural strength, like, so there's loaded weight bearing resistance, and then there's running, like cardiovascular, there's musculoskeletal, there's cardiovascular, there's proprioceptive, there, you know what I mean? There's all these different modalities that people chase, and everybody knows you don't get stronger by running, and everybody knows you don't get faster by doing heavy squats. You know what I mean? Like, you build your bone density and your musculoskeletal structure by loaded weight bearing resistance training. You increase your VO2 max by doing short intensity, like high intensity interval training type stuff. You increase your, the amount of capillaries and red blood cells by doing longer distance work. Like, everybody knows, like, these are the modalities that we train. And nobody would think a complete fitness routine is all squatting, and nobody would think a complete fitness routine is all yoga. Like, you got to do all the elements if you want to be completely fit. But then with dogs, they're like, if you talk to people about canine conditioning, they're like, we do sprints on a parachute and balancing on a ball. And you're like, okay, that's awesome. That's really awesome. You're not, that's not, you know what I mean? Like, you are not addressing several things. Like, you're not doing any distance work, and you're not changing the amount of red blood cells they have. You're not changing the amount of vascularity that they have, which can help shunt lactic acid. Like, you're sprinting, which is rad. It's super rad. I love sprints. We do sprints all day. But like, you're doing no resistance training, and you're doing no cardiovascular training. You know what I mean? Like, you're just doing, anaerobic sprints, but if everybody's like, well, what else is there? And then we make these corollaries because the weight pull world is so misunderstood, or people are ignorant of the weight pull world. Most people don't even know what it is. They're just not in it at all. And so everybody kind of knows, like 10 years ago when Fit Pause was kind of getting popular, everybody kind of knows, like, dogs need more. Like, when we have human athletes, we don't just run and jump. We do musculoskeletal work. We stress the musculoskeletal system, but we do it with barbells, and we can sit in a bench and do all this shit, and then we can stand up and load barbells onto our back and do this other shit, and we can hold bars with our hands and do this shit, and we can hold bars in our hand and squat and deadlift, and like we can go vertical pulling, you know what I mean, with our hands on a bar. We can load our back and do hip hinge movements with the bar on our back. There's all this that you can't mimic it with a dog. You know what I mean? Like they can't. So then people are just like, well, shit, what do we do? Backpacks, I guess. We could do backpacks, and that's a way to do it. Mm-hmm. And then we could, stand on a fucking ball because the ball makes them flex their muscles. Yes, it does. Mm-hmm. But it's like if you went into any athletic program, any professional athletic program in the world, and all they had their fucking rugby players doing was balancing on balls, you'd be like, this is fucked up. You guys are not preparing your dog. You're not preparing your team for rugby, bro. They have to lift weights. Like resistance training makes you more durable. Yep. Right? GPP, not powerlifting, GPP. Yep. And so like people have just been behind the times. They can't figure out. They're just like, they know they need resistance training, but they can't think of a way to do it. So they kind of fall into parachutes and bands and like rubber bands, like where when the dog walks it puts pressure between their legs, you know what I mean, and like Bosu balls and fit paws and stuff. But they're just not realizing like for fucking man, for 100 years or something. 100 years is kind of strong. That's actually terrible math. Like I know weight pull hit the pit bull world in early 80s. It was in the husky and Malamute world before that, because it's an offshoot. It's like a off-season bragging rights way to test and run and work your dogs that are pulling dogs because they pull for work, and dogs have been pulling for work for fucking ever, right? Yep. But it didn't hit the pit bull world until the 80s, so I didn't hear about it until the 80s when it hit the pit bull world. Yep. So it's like, but it's been going. It's like it's been going forever, but people, because they're not in that world, they just can't think. Like I know I need resistance training, but I don't know what that is.
Yeah, and how do I do it?
Full body resistance training. Here it is. This is money. So yeah, I think the most neglected part of GPP for dogs is resistance for sure, and that's drag work, man. Drag work is the money. Drag work, the magic is in the drag, is the quote.
Okay. What I mean? Yeah, for sure. And indeed, for me, look, you're preaching to the choir here, no worries there, so, but I suppose, and I was listening to one of your podcasts the other day in regards to, and that's what I'm trying to help do, is spread the word and educate. And when the fuck is it going to hit mainstream? When are the people, have their, their Labradors and their cavoodles or oodles go, hey, fuck, this is going to work,
Well, it's nuts because it's like, how many people do you know in the sport dog and the pet dog world that, oh man, cruciate injuries and hip injuries, it's so fucking common. And you're like, well, yes, you're having musculoskeletal. Like your dogs, you're not making their musculoskeletal system stronger and more durable. You're just hoping it'll last. You're testing it, but you're not adapting it. You know what I mean? Like you've got to build it so they can be bulletproof enough to do the bullshit you're asking them to do. That's right. I'm telling you, man, in 10 years, in 10 years, unless everything doesn't work like it's supposed to, in 10 years, every single person doing bite sports with their dog should have their dog doing resistance training. Like have their dog on a fucking harness drag and weight, 100%. I mean, any athlete should. Like I said, nowadays, ping pong players lift weights. 90-year-old grandmothers coming back from hip replacement are doing loaded weight-bearing exercise. Like loaded weight-bearing exercise is recommended for everyone in every situation possible. You know what I mean? And I think it'll be like that in the dog world once it catches on enough. It'll be like that. But like I hope that everybody doing any kind of contact type sport with their dog, man, they should be dragging their dogs.
For sure. Did you see the there was a commercial making the rounds on Facebook recently about an 80-year-old granddad bought a kettlebell and he was picking it up, putting it up, and then at the end there, the goal was to pick his granddaughter up and put the star on the Christmas tree,
Yeah, yeah.
Um, that
That's cool. I mean, that's the point. Like, man, people don't understand. Like, uh, for me, everything goes back to practical application, which is kind of stupid. But it's like, look, I pick up all this heavy shit because one day something in my life might require me moving something of substance.
mhm.
You know what I mean? And I want to be able to do that. Like, if I can deadlift fucking 500 pounds, carrying the couch up the stairs is easier, and I'm not going to get hurt. But if I can barely deadlift 100 pound couch is out of my range. I'm like, nope, can't do it. Sorry, fuck, gotta call somebody. Sorry, you know.
Yep.
Um, no, man, I like, yeah. For me, everything is about practical application. I'm strong, so I can be skillful when I need to be in the face of heavy things. I practice mobility. I
Mhm,
don't just practice heavy shit. Like,
mhm,
I can, you know, I can do parkour if you ask me to. Like, I can
mhm.
move, man. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong. That sounded way more than it should have. I can move. I'm like a hippo. Like, it's surprising how fast they can move.
Yeah.
But I'm not like lithe or anything, but I move well for a big fat old dude. You know what I mean? Like, I can
Yeah.
move pretty good. But
Yep.
it's like, I want to be able to move objects that don't want to be moved because they might need to be moved. I want to be able to
Mhm,
move myself. I
mhm,
want to be able to have a work capacity that can last for a little while. I want, you know what I mean? Like, I
mhm,
want those basic tenets of fitness, not
mhm,
what I look like,
mhm.
fitness, like the
Yep.
ability to perform in all circumstances, right?
Yep. Yep.
Like, I want that for me, but I also want that for my dog. So I
Mm.
want to make sure we get as well rounded as we can, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Look, like I said, I'm on. You're preaching. Like I said, as you're preaching to me, no worries at all. I'm right on board. But I suppose for our listeners out there, as you mentioned, it starts with drag. Look at it. I know that you've in your Patreon, you've got some templates and some stuff like that. We
Oh
had
yeah,
at yeah.
we've got to start to finish. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is where you start, and there's a bunch of different sample programs. And I say sample programs because that's important, man. You've been around the strength and conditioning world, you know what can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, you get stuck on like, this is Wendler 531, and that's a great program. It's a solid program.
Yep.
But then you get people that are like, ha ha ha, ha Wendler 531, and they won't do any, and you're like, all right. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Where like there's strong lifts 5x5, there's Texas method, there's conjugate method. All of them are great.
Yep.
They're all great, but they're all they any program that is successful follows certain principles.
Mm-hmm.
The principles are what matter. The program doesn't matter at all. The program is just an expression of, like, I take the same what's fucking the paint, Roy G Biv, like the same rainbow of colors, and you can paint any painting in the world.
Yep.
It's you know what I mean? Like, the understanding of it is what matters. So like, we have a bunch of sample programs
Mm-hmm.
so people can see how those principles can be put together in different ways. Because strong lifts 5x5 and Wendler 531
Mm-hmm.
and fucking Bulgarian method and all that, they all follow the same. They all follow sound principles of athletic conditioning and development,
Mm-hmm.
but they're laid out in different ways. So I have different programs laid out in different ways so people can see how they play out for their dog.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go into like, here's how you do sport specificity. Like, if you want to get your dog on the wall climb, you want to get your dog into this thing,
Yep.
these are the ways to go from there. But yeah, every dog, every dog should drag. Every
Mm.
dog.
Yeah.
Just every dog.
Full stop. Interview over. Done.
This is the way it is. You know what I mean? Like, that's just
Yeah.
it's just that is just sound athletic development,
Mm-hmm.
and will save you a ton of heartache and money on injury prevention,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Oh.
And some dogs, man, for some dogs, it's also magic in the sense of, it's not just athletic development. For some dogs, that is the thing that makes their heart sing. Like, for some dogs, that is the activity.
Yep.
Like, there's dogs out there that won't fuck with toys, and they won't fuck with food, and they don't really give a shit, and they don't want to do personal play, and they're like, man, whatever. But you put them in a harness, and they are like, this is what I was supposed to do. And they just, yes, and they drag,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, it's funny because I think even if you're going to do various sports, even if you're going to do a sport that looks cardiovascular in nature, you should still do drag work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You
So
know, there's no coach for a Boston Marathon person. Even those guys do
mm-hmm.
lifting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It might not look the same as the guy that's going to play rugby, but they definitely lift. You know.
For sure. And right here at the moment, so I've been doing, dry land mushing,
Ah,
bike jaw, and candy cross. They're
I
my two.
wrote, I
Yeah.
wrote an article about that in probably 2011
Mm-hmm.
about doing long distance harness sports with your
Yeah.
dog
Yeah.
because one of my dogs
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. She will pull weight. She'll do low gear weight pull,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not her favorite. She'll do it.
Yep.
Doesn't give a shit about toys at all. She thinks she's a fucking husky. She's a pit bull, but she thinks she's a husky.
Yep.
Her favorite thing in the world.
Yep.
Her favorite thing in the world is joring. Like she'll get.
Yeah.
I do candy cross races with her all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we did bike joring. I've done skijoring with her. I'm terrible. It's fucking horrifying. It's horrifying. I've done kick sleds with her. Candy cross is the thing I feel the safest about. Man, back in 2010, maybe 2010, 2011, something like that, I talked my way back when Tough Mudders first got started. I
Yeah.
talked my way into about 2 or 3 Tough Mudders with my dog.
For sure. Awesome.
Like, well, he hits it down. I climb up the wall. I belay him up the wall. Like we've got a video of us going over a 12-foot. We've got a video of us doing a 6-foot jump, a 12-foot wall, and a 6-foot jump. So we jump the jumps at the same time.
Yeah.
Like I do a vault and he does a jump.
For
And
sure.
then on the tall wall, I climb up, sit on the top, and I belay him up. Down on the other side, belay him down. I climb down, then we run and jump the other wall.
Yeah. It's
That was
awesome.
like 2010, 2011, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've been doing shit for a while. It's kind of funny.
Oh, mate, and it's awesome. But we and it's. I spoke to a good friend of mine that does a lot of Spartan stuff, and in the next, depending on how this COVID shit goes, our goal is to get an activity like that happening. I know you've also got the is it the canine biathlon over in the States that it's pretty massive. But yeah, love to get something like that here cracking. Even just a once a year event here in Australia.
We talk shit about doing about having GRC do some obstacle course races with dogs, not as a title. Calm down, don't anybody fucking write. I'm not gonna title it. It's not gonna be a new thing.
Yeah.
Like just like hey, fun. Like we'll sponsor it or something. But like that's a fucking super cool activity.
Oh.
Obstacle course racing with your dog is the shit
because
it's so many different skills.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, man, how do you navigate? Like, this is one of those things. Like, how do you navigate a fucking tunnel that you got to crawl through and you can't crawl through side by side? How do you navigate that? Do you send them and down them at a distance? Do you down them, crawl through, and recall them?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Do you teach them to belly crawl in front or behind? Like, there's shit. And you have no idea until the day you're running a race and you're like, fuck, a tunnel. I had never thought of a tunnel. Now what? I almost died in this one race. There was a swimming section and I didn't know it. Like we didn't get a walkthrough. You just go. You don't know what the fuck obstacles are going to be.
Yep.
So we're running. It was like after 3 miles, it was like 5K, right? And it's at the end and we're dying. And I've got him on a 4-foot bungee, which for candy cross is kind of short, but like I'm running serious dogs and I don't want any mistakes. So I premium on control, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we're going and we can navigate this shit together beautifully. And I'll unhook him, put him in a stay, go over, recall. Like we have our obedience worked out, right? But we're flying and there's this fucking water crossing. And I'm like, all right, whatever, dude. He can swim. We're all set, right? But I didn't take him off my belt because I'm assuming I've never swam with my dog in a candy cross rig. I'm like, we'll probably swim about the same speed. That is not true, right? That is not true. So we jump in the water and we're both swimming. He goes way faster than me, right? But then he hits the line and he can't go forward because he's attached to me. So that makes him start to sink.
Fuck.
So then he goes, well, fuck that. I'm going to climb on top of dad. So he turns around and tries to climb on me. And now I can't swim for shit. And I'm like, dude, I'm drowning. I'm like, I'm going to die. I'm fucking horrified. I unclip him, right? So I just unclip him and say, fucking be free, buddy. And he just swims off to the edge of this fucking lake. And then he gets to the lake, and I'm trying not to drown, and I'm way past my ability. I'm like, this is entirely too far for me. This is unsafe solo. He gets to the edge of the thing, and I'm like, down, and I down him while he waits for me to fucking swim over there, and then I hook him up and we go. But I mean, I was like, I never thought about downing him at a distance while I swim.
Yes.
You want to know, like, proof your obedience positions? Like, swim and sound like you're scared you're gonna drown and call it down and see if it works. Down! It was fucking terrible. It was horrible.
Oh, that's a classic.
That's just fun, man.
That's exactly right. And you know, getting out there and doing that type of stuff, like you said, it's fun. It's, you know, and for the general population out there, just get out and have fucking fun, you know, with your dogs. What are we talking, you know, almost 60% US figures here, you know, US figures of people and dogs are obese or overweight. Yeah.
It's brutal, man. And this is coming from a kid that's naturally a fat fuck. Like, I come from a long line of fat bastards, you know? So like, it's, if I don't try hard, I will blow out like a Jiffy popcorn thing. You know what I mean? I'll just go. It's bad. So like, I train hard and try to stay athletic, right? But and it causes so many problems. It's like the general inflammation and the general like structural the structural integrity gets compromised because of the amount of weight that dogs have to carry and the general inflammation that they carry through not exercising and terrible nutrition. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I'm on the same as well. You know, I look at a muffin or a donut, and I become a donut or a muffin. You know, like I don't even have to consume it. As long as I look at it, I'm like, whoa, you know.
I was made for survival. I was not made for this world. My metabolism is made for like raiding a village, eating everything they have, and then not finding another village for a week. That's what my metabolism is built for. It's not built for like vending machines. You know what I mean? Like food availability 24/7 was not what my body had built for. You know what I mean? Like that's bad for me.
Yeah. You touched on it just before, you know, nutrition, I suppose for, you know, for the dogs, you know, for me, it's the foundation, nutrition and also recovery as well. You know, people don't think about those two particular subjects often as well, you know.
That's the thing, the missing pieces from the pit bull world that most people don't, nutrition is one of those things, but it's like, drag work for sure, and then rub downs. People just, they're blown away when we start talking about rub downs and all the benefits, you know. But that's like an important part. That's like stereotypical traditional pit bull world is rub downs, you know. So that's interesting, I think, you know, like that kind of recovery training. I heard a coach one time, a long time ago, tell me there's no such thing as overtraining, only under recovery.
Yeah. And that's something I've discovered in, you know, this, we'll go to human training for a moment. You know, I've been really focusing on, do you follow Joel Jamieson stuff at all?
I know him.
Yeah. So, you know, heart rate variability, you know, getting right into, obviously sleep, recovery, and intuitive, also like thinking, you know, where am I at personally? Fuck, it's a red day today, so you know, a major stimulation day, but I feel fucked that my recovery score is poor. If I go and do that, I'm going to end up sick or depleted, you know. So changing things up quite a bit based on some science, you know, and a bit of intuition.
Well, it's hard because people in any endeavor, not just athletics, but athletics is a good metaphor for all of life, right? You need a plan so you can make progress. Like, you don't make progress if you don't continually achieve new goals. Like, you have to move down the road to get where you're going, right? So you need kind of a plan, or you make really sporadic progress. Like, if I don't have a map, I might cover distance, but I might not be getting any closer to where I was trying to go. Or I might get somewhere, but it might not be where I picked. You know what I mean? Like, you got to have a roadmap to get where you're trying to fucking go, right? But then you have to have the flexibility. Like people, the problem, like I was saying earlier, like there's a sample program.
Yep.
People go like, that's my roadmap. This is my map. And you're like, okay, cool. But what if the bridge is washed out? You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
if we're using the metaphor, right?
Yep.
Like that's awesome that that's your plan, but you got to be able to adjust. You can't get so stuck on the plan. And this happens. I was really bad about this. And truth be told, still am really bad about this for myself. I'm much more adaptable with my dogs than I am my own. Dude, if it's max effort day, it's max effort day. If somebody's like, you all right? I'm like, it takes me 3 minutes to get up out the chair. They're like, maybe you shouldn't do max effort deadlift. I'm like, nah, I'll be all right, dude. I'll be good. I just got to warm up and drink more caffeine. It'll be fine. Like, that's a stupid fucking plan. Like, that's a surefire way. That's why I have no ACLs in either leg and fucking arthritis and shit. Like, because I'm not, I struggle with personal adaptability, we'll say. Nice way of saying stubborn. I struggle with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, every athlete struggles with that. All of your strengths are your secret weakness, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of your weaknesses are your secret strength. Like that's what it is. So like stubbornness is what makes an athlete overcome and fucking achieve things. But it's also what buries them with overuse injuries, shit like that. The people that are super adaptable and like, well, let's just switch. My back hurts a little bit. Let's just switch. That's great. You're wonderful that you're adaptable. Congratulations. Soft fuck. You're never going to accomplish anything. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
You're not going to accomplish anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like you need to have a bit of both. You need to be smart enough. If you're the naturally adaptable kind of soft person, you need to be smart enough to give yourself reasons to go.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're the naturally stubborn, dig yourself into a hole person, you need to be smart enough to give yourself reasons to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
For your dog, if you've got a hard dog, man, they're not a problem. Getting them to go is not hard.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be the voice of reason in their head that goes, man, you know, you're a little tender when I'm doing the rub down. I see you make a contraction. You're not making a face. You're not whining, but I see you making a contraction every time I roll over that, you know, adductor. Mm-hmm. And so I was gonna drag you today kind of heavy, but like, maybe we'll wait till tomorrow. You know, maybe we'll do another day or two. Maybe we'll start your recovery week early this week, your deload week early, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think you've got to be the one smart enough to force the deload. Mm-hmm. You know, but by the same token, if you've got a cupcake of a dog, it's the same thing. If you've got a cupcake of a dog, you never have to worry about that. You don't actually have to like, I think you might be too sore to do all the badassery that I had planned for you today. You're going to have the dog where they're like, it's 4 degrees hotter. And they sit down. And then you're going to have to be the person to go, all right, I'm not going to fucking hammer you. I'm not going to make you do it, but I've got to be smart enough to find a way to give you the motivation to have you want to be on the same page as me about getting this work done. Mm-hmm. But if I have a dog that wants to go bananas and they can't, I've got to be smart enough about finding a way to help them know how to tone it down. Because if all you do is just block them from it, you're going to have problems because they're going to go nuts. Yeah. So it's like you got to be smart enough to figure out what your dog's strengths and weaknesses are and help direct them into the program. But you got to be adaptable. Like you have to have a plan, but you have to be adaptable. You know? Yeah, for sure.
I've been wanting to ask you for some time. So with my with this, obviously the sled dog stuff, I've been doing a heap of research into heart rate stuff, and I'd love to be able to transfer that to you know, dogs working on the mill. You know, have you considered it, and have you trialed it, anything like that?
So I've never done it. No, I haven't, but I've had a couple conversations. It's some of those like you go, ooh, that's kind of cool, but then it exits my brain before anything gets done about it. Like, you know, It's one of those interesting thoughts, but never catches fire enough to make me start doing some shit about it. I don't know if I can check a dog's pulse. I know how to do that. Yep. But other than manually checking their pulse, I don't know of any heart rate. Like when we go to the doctor, humans, they check our fucking our blood pressure and our heart rate. Yep. I've never seen them put a cuff on a dog.
Yeah.
Is it because they can't, or is it because they just like the dog's not going to like? Does the technology not work even though the dog would cooperate, or are they just like fuck this? It's not going to work because every asshole is going to come in here and bite me.
Yeah, for sure. So, I started doing some research, and they've got bands for horses that team up to an app, and Polar have the I think it's their H10 model that I'm researching about putting it on the dog. So, and it goes to your app on your phone. Yeah.
I just got one of like a while back. Got one of those Aura rings
Oh yeah.
that
Yeah.
does it on your finger.
Mm.
I'm like, I wonder if there's got to be. I mean, there has at this point. Fucking NASA can tell my temperature from Mars. You know what I mean? Like, how can we not have heart rate monitors for dogs at this point?
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah.
But you know this is one of those things where I don't even think it's real,
Yep.
right? But you know, on human treadmills, they have the thing where you hold the bar and it gives you your readout.
Yep.
I was like, there's got to be one like a pipe. There's got to be one like a bite bar, right? Like the dog sprint, 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 sprint. You go bite, and they go boom, and you're like do 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 outrun. You know what
That's
I
right.
mean?
Yeah.
I mean that probably won't work. I'm sure you can't tell heart rate through fucking teeth.
That's right. That's right. And that actually,
$1 million if they invent that shit.
oh, for sure. And actually, that was something that I was thinking.
There's only like 20 people in the world that would give a fuck
Yeah,
because
it's right.
nobody cares
Exactly.
about
Exactly. No, that's classic. And I was talking. I know that we're probably getting into some crazy stuff here, but who gives a shit? That's right. You know, just having something in the dog's, obviously in the dog's mouth, and getting them to nasal breathe and use their diaphragm. Especially on the mill. In there's probably not a lot of information out there on that at the moment, but I'm a big fan of using the diaphragm, nasal breathing. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch. There's documentation coming out about inhibited breathing and how it affects diaphragmatic usage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
a lot of the like power lung, the thing that you put in that looks like a scuba piece that just inhibits the breathing and it's adjustable.
Mm-hmm.
The face mask, like the fucking gas mask shit that used to be really pop. Isn't it funny how that shit was real popular until it became mandatory? Motherfuckers are jogging in face masks, looking all hardcore, and then all of a sudden you're like, wear a mask, and they're like, yeah, I just think that's funny. But anyway, like all those face masks that inhibit breathing, like all that stuff is to try to cause adaptive pressure to make you have to use your respiration musculature.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you can inhale and exhale and there's no resistance, then you can breathe badly. Like you can chest breathe and use your shoulders to pump.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're like, man, there's no air coming in, your body has to start flexing the muscles designed to create respiration. And that would be a good thing to train your respiration muscles. I don't know. I have no idea how that affects dogs. I don't know. All I know is that I think it's one of those built into the program that I didn't, a hidden benefit built into the program that I didn't realize. Because I do a lot of spring pull work.
Yep.
And let me tell you, like a dog, like back in the day, Pitts, like I can show you one of my students' dogs right now. He'll hang off spring pull for an hour unbroken. No fucking question. Well, that's 1 hour with a stuffed mouth breathing, use like effort, like squeezing and like not just dead hanging, like hula hooping and shit. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like no touching the ground, right? So like that dog's got an hour's worth of nasal breathing, theoretically making it harder to breathe, theoretically forcing them to work the muscles involved in respiration.
Yep.
Which is cool, you know what I mean? Like, but I never thought about doing it intentionally. Like, I did it on the mill, because we do spring pull. So it's like I was accidentally maybe doing it, but it's like now I'm looking back on the program and going, "Ah, shit, that could have potentially been a benefit, athletically speaking, to the dogs that I didn't even register because I was just doing spring pull, not thinking about building the diaphragm." You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah, that might be a hidden benefit of the spring pull.
Yeah, for sure. No, look.
I shouldn't have said that on tape. I should have been like, I did that on purpose. Yeah, diaphragmatic breathing. Yeah, I wrote in diaphragmatic work via the spring pull. Yeah, I fucking didn't know it. I was like, whoa, look at that. I'm accidentally doing something right.
Yeah. That's right. And look, at this point in time, we don't fucking know, we don't, there's, as you mentioned, we are so far behind in testing and athletic performance with dogs at the moment. We don't know. So there's going to be a lot of trial and error. I'm, one of my foundations, obviously the Russian kettlebell, they call it,
Pavel guy.
Yeah, I am. Yep. And they talk about what the heck effect, in their in some of their systems. They're like, oh fuck, I didn't know that happened, but it was a side effect.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff like that, man. There's a lot of the problem with like good science is divisive. Like you can not divisive socially. I mean, like you can take the parameters. Like these are the 3 elements, and we're going to change one of those elements. And now, okay, we get the result. Now we're going to go back and we're going to change this one element. And like you can divide up the elements and the aspects into these very clear, change one fucking thing at a time and see what the result is. The problem in athletics is it's so multifaceted. You're like, okay, well, when you change something in the gym, like, dude, if you change the shoes you wear, it changes the tibial angle, which changes the back angle, which changes the effort level, which changes the respiration rate. So if you're like, oh yeah, these shoes, that's fine. But you're like, it changes so many fucking things that you're like, oh, wait a minute, that actually, shit, that's like, well, was it the shoes or was it the hip angle change? Was it, what was it? Was it the material the shoes were made out of, or was it the angle of the fucking heel? Or I don't know. Like if somebody bends forward, negating the elevation of the heel, does it still have that effect? So was it the back angle or was it the shoes? It's so hard when you get into athletics to actually like use real science and change one particular fucking thing without accidentally changing 6 other things, and then you don't know which one it was.
That's exactly right. And as you mentioned, you've got these guys that are just 100% on, Wendler or 100% strong first. And, they just fuck off. You're wearing shoes. We don't wear fucking shoes in the gym, like we lift without.
Converse only, or go fuck yourself.
That's right.
Man, I'm a Converse guy too. Let me tell you something. One of the hardest things for me was when I got into Olympic weightlifting, right? Yep. So like, I don't know, man, back in like, had to be like 2004, 2005 or something. I got certified USA weightlifting coach, right?
Yep.
Whatever. There's paperwork fucking you can get from anywhere. But it's like, I fell in love with the concept of weightlifting proper, as in, you have to say Olympic weightlifting for your average folks, but that is what weightlifting is. So weightlifting proper, Olympic weightlifting. And you got you don't have to wear shoes. It is kind of expected, but it is expected because no one can get in the bottom position without correct femur alignment, which you're not going to get without heel elevation affecting your tibia. It's fine. And I'm really inflexible. So I needed like fucking pimp shoes. Like I needed stupid high heels because I'm an old inflexible fuck. And I was like, that was the hardest thing for me, but not because it was weird feeling, but because it wasn't Chucks. Like I've lifted my entire goddamn life in Chucks, and Chucks are lifting. And so I would go in the gym and put on these fucking moon boots and just be like, this feels fucking so, like when I lifted, it felt right, but just walking around with my ski boots on, I was just like, this is fucking stupid. I hate this. I tried as hard as I could to figure out a way to get Chucks and build a heel into them just so I wouldn't feel so stupid, which should make me feel stupider to be in platform Chucks, but it would just feel better. And then when I got out of Olympic weightlifting, I'm in a strongman kick right now.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah. But it was half the thing that I liked. I was like, hey, I get to go back to Chucks.
That's exactly right. So have you accumulated all your Atlas stones? That are.
Oh yeah, dude. Are you kidding me? Oh yeah, bro. Dude, I've got farmer's handles. I've got 2 stones. I've got a bunch of different kegs, couple different sizes of logs, man, a yoke. Oh, yeah. The benefit of owning your own gym is you can get stupid. I'm just like, you know what we need? A yoke. And everybody's like, what? I'm like, don't worry about the fucking yoke.
We need it.
You totally need a yoke, dude. How could you not have a yoke, right?
That's right. Yeah. And some kegs and, full of water floating around. Hey.
If you look at any of my dog training stuff, if you see dog training videos, we're usually either in the cage, so there's a fence behind us, which looks weird, or we're in the gym and you just see logs and kegs and stones and shit falling all over the place. It's ridiculous. So
yeah, I was I kept I sold my gym and so my gym was primarily kettlebell gym, and I think I had like 100 kettlebells, and I decided to sell them just before COVID. I could have doubled my money during COVID, but
made so much money, dude. Kettlebells were gold at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah, I missed the opportunity, but that's okay, all good. So, all right, let's I suppose wind it up. Look, I really appreciate your time, and I hope that our listeners, take a bit from this as well. But where can they I suppose find out more about you, jump into your Patreon, things like that?
If you want to check out the dog training side of things, you can check out nldogs.com. That's Next Level Dogs, nldogs.com. That's a dog training company that my wife and I run, and that should have workshop seminar dates. If you want to do Skype lessons or whatever, you can get in touch with us on there. If you want to check out GRC Dog Sports, the organization, not me personally, but the actual organization itself, look for clubs in your area or look for events going on in your area. You can check that out on grcdogsports.com. We have a podcast, GRC Dog Talk, on iTunes, and we have a Patreon page that it was supposed to be just extra content for podcast listeners and supporters, but it kind of turned into just a library of all my training stuff. So I don't know how to do extra content, so I'm just like, hey, this is how I train dogs, motherfucker, and it's just like everything I do, hours and hours of videos and PDF downloads and all kinds of bullshit. So it wasn't supposed to be a step-by-step online dog instructional thing, but it kind of turned out to be.
Awesome. So Jay Jack, thank you very much for jumping on the call once again. For listeners, if you've liked what you've heard today, I appreciate a like, share.
You never asked, what's your deadlift? What do you deadlift?
I was getting to it before we finished it. I'm getting to it. That was going to be the final sign-off question, my friend. All righty, let's hit it. Jay Jack, how much do you deadlift?
Right now, my conventional deadlift is about 470, that's pretty good. 4 pounds, right? 470 pounds. I have no fucking idea what that is in kilos.
Yep.
Maybe 200 something.
Yep.
Anyway,
if we halve it, say, yeah.
What's weird is my Jefferson deadlift and my Hackenschmidt deadlift, both odd fucking lifts, are both at 465. So I can't really do more conventional than I can do awkward. Yeah, that's interesting. I do better when it's weird. If it's weird, I'm better. If it's like odd shaped, I'm like, it's good. It's no, dude, can you do that behind your back in the shape of a question mark? I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. Can you do conventional? Nah, not really.
Yeah, awesome. Alrighty, so once again, Jay Jack, thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll speak soon.